Right, 1.3, so we're almost done with this question. We've just got 1.3 and 1.4 to go. And if there's time, we'll talk about some ethics on stock valuation. Right, so let's continue. Determine the number of jerseys that are missing on the 28th of Feb 2019. Okay, so looking at this particular question, they are basically asking us calculate if there are jerseys missing, right? How many rugby jerseys are missing in terms of this particular question? In other words, what is that deficit? What is that stock that is missing? So not difficult for 4 marks, okay? So our focus is as follows. We're going to obviously look at units. So this particular column, right? That is what we are focusing on. And we're starting off with units on hand at the beginning of the year. So at the beginning of the year, I'm going to use this particular page to write on, right? So I had 360 jerseys in my shop at the beginning of the year. Okay. Then I purchased an additional 1,470 jerseys. So obviously now there's more jerseys in my shop. So plus 1,470. Okay, so opening stock, purchases sorted. Then I returned 5 jerseys that I purchased in February. So obviously returning of jerseys, those jerseys are now leaving my shop. So the number of jerseys I have is now going to decrease by 5. Okay, so what have I done? I took opening stock, what I had at the beginning of the year. I then added purchases, what I bought during the year, minus what I returned. So if I had to ask you for the year, how many jerseys did I have available? You're going to tell me, Mahesh, all we're doing is we're taking the 360, okay, so opening stock, plus what I purchased, 1,470, minus the 5 that I returned, and the jerseys that I had available, 1,825. Okay, right, how many jerseys did I sell? So remember, this is available in my shop, right? If I scroll down, units during the year, 1,670 jerseys were sold. In other words, this represents the units that were sold. So 1,670 is what I ended up selling. So how many jerseys should there be in my shop? So obviously what I had available, 1,825 minus 1,670. So in my shop at the end of the year, there should be 155 jerseys available. Okay, that's according to now my books, according to my records. That's how many jerseys I should have available. But when we did a physical stock on hand, when we counted our stock, remember periodic system, you're going to have to do a physical stock count. So when I did a physical stock count, there's only 145 jerseys. Okay, so clearly I can see I should have 155. I only have 145, which means there are 10 jerseys missing. Okay, you guys with me? 10 jerseys that are missing. So the exact same calculation that I've written, okay, you would then fill in that calculation, and that's how you would determine the 10 units or the 10 jerseys that are missing. Okay, so 10 jerseys that are missing. Right, now highly unlikely they would ask you to calculate the trading stock deficit because this is the periodic system. But in the event of them asking you calculate the value of your stock that went missing, all you're doing, guys, is taking the 10 jerseys, right? And if you're using the weighted average method, you will then multiply it by the weighted average price. Okay, so if you take the 10 jerseys times 216 Rand, 25 cents, that would give you the value of your trading stock deficit, which is obviously an expense for the business and would be shown in the statement of comprehensive income or in the income statement, as we often refer to it as. Okay, so 4 marks in this case, just to calculate the number of jerseys that are missing. Right, I'm quickly looking at the clock. We still have 4 minutes, so we have enough time to do the last question. What advice would you give the owner regarding the selling price of the jerseys for the next year? Okay, right, so if we go to our table, let's quickly remind ourselves what was the selling price for the year. So looking at the information given, information number 4, your selling price was an amount of 355 Rand, and there's no indication that that selling price changed during the course of the year. So we can clearly say that this price remained constant. It didn't change. So our selling price, 355 Rand, obviously remained the same for the year. So 355 Rand remained the same for the 2019 financial year. However, let's now look at the cost price. Did the cost price remain the same? Remember, we purchased units, right? In April, we bought jerseys in July, in November, and in the month of February. So if you look at the cost price, and if you compare the cost price, April 160, July it increased to 180, November a further increase 230, and obviously February, that jersey is now costing us 250 Rand. So as you can see, guys, the cost price was obviously increasing the more we purchased, or the later we purchased in terms of the months, the cost price increased. However, our selling price remained constant. Now remember, it's costing the business more, and as a result, their profit per jersey is obviously decreasing as the cost price increases. So however, cost price has increased, right, during the year. So cost price has increased during the year, okay, resulting in a decrease in profit. Okay, so as you can see, your profit, because your cost price is increasing, your profit obviously decreases. So based on this bit of information, what advice would you give the owner? So the advice you would give him is increase your selling price in the next financial year. Okay, so quite obvious. He wants to maintain that markup, or he wants to maybe sell at a slightly higher price, whatever the case may be, he's got to increase his selling price. You could argue, if he increases his selling price, will he still be able to sell the same number of jerseys in terms of quantity? So remember, you could talk about the pros and the cons, but just make sure you are able to substantiate. Okay, right guys, we're done with today's question. I see we've got just over a minute left. So just quickly some advice regarding stock valuation. We've obviously gone through all the calculations. Please make sure that you practice, because the more you practice, the more familiar you become with the calculations. Please make sure you show all your calculations and not just the final answer, because in the event of you slipping up, making a mistake on that calculator, you can still get loads of part marks just by showing your calculation. Then, in terms of ethics, please make sure you go through that part of this section of work. So when I'm talking about ethics, sometimes you could be given a case study where the owner wants to manipulate the profit. So he wants to change his stock valuation method because he wants to pay less tax, he wants to apply for a loan, whatever the case may be. So he may want to either inflate profits, or he might want to show a slightly less amount of profit. So remember, you could get questions on ethics. Is this correct? Is it incorrect in terms of stock valuation?